One human rule changed the fate of the galaxy. The council chamber fell silent as Admiral Chen walked to the center platform. Representatives from 47 species watched her with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. Humans had been part of the Galactic Federation for barely 2 decades, yet here she stood, demanding an emergency session. The Vroxian ambassador, his crystalline form pulsing with irritation, spoke first. What matter could possibly require interrupting our trade negotiations? Your species barely understands faster than light travel. Chen didn't flinch. We need to talk about your military doctrine. A ripple of confusion spread through the chamber. The Kalmorian delegate, a massive creature resembling an armored beetle, let out what could only be described as a laugh. Our military doctrine? Human, we have been waging war across the stars for millennia while your ancestors were still discovering fire. That's exactly the problem, Chen replied calmly. She pulled up a holographic display showing recent battle formations. 3 months ago, the Zynthian Empire attacked the mining colony on Epsilon 7. You responded with the standard Federation fleet. You lost 60% of your ships. The Vroxian ambassador's crystals darkened. A tactical setback. The Zynthians had numerical superiority.
No, Chen interrupted. They had predictability. I've studied every major engagement the Federation has fought in the last century. Every single one follows the same pattern. You group your ships by species. Vroxian crystal ships on the left flank, Kalmorian heavy cruisers at center, Delphian scouts on the right. Every single time. Silence descended over the chamber. Your enemies know exactly what you're going to do before you do it, Chen continued. They know the Vroxian ships will try to flank left because that's what Vroxians always do. They know the Kalmorians will charge straight ahead because that's your cultural heritage. You're not fighting as a unified force. You're fighting as separate armies that happen to be in the same battlefield. The Delphian representative, a being of pure energy contained in a force field, flickered with what might have been anger. Are you suggesting we abandon our traditional combat doctrines? These strategies have been refined over thousands of years. I'm suggesting they're getting you killed, Chen said bluntly. On Earth, we learned something during our world wars. We learned it the hard way, written in blood and fire. We call it combined arms doctrine.
She changed the holographic display, showing human military formations. You don't group units by where they come from or what they look like. You group them by what they can do. Fast attack ships screen for heavy cruisers, regardless of which species built them. Long-range artillery provides cover for close combat vessels. Scout ships from any species can call in strikes from any other species' weapons platforms. Impossible, the Kalmorian delegate rumbled. Our weapon systems are not compatible. Our communication protocols are different. Our tactical thinking is shaped by our biology. Then change it, Chen said simply. Make them compatible. Learn each other's languages. Train together until a Vroxian captain can command a Kalmorian ship and vice versa. The chamber erupted in protests, species shouting over each other in dozens of languages, the translation system struggling to keep up. But Chen noticed something. Not everyone was protesting. Some were listening. The Vroxian ambassador's crystals had shifted to a thoughtful amber. You say you learned this the hard way. What did it cost you? Chen's expression darkened. 2 world wars, over 100 million dead, cities turned to ash. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we figured it out. But once we did, everything changed. Not just how we fought, but how we thought about ourselves. We stopped being separate tribes that happened to live on the same planet. We started being one species.
We are not one species, the Kalmorian said, but there was less certainty in his voice now. No, Chen agreed, but you're one federation, or at least you claim to be. The question is whether that means anything beyond trade agreements and diplomatic niceties. The Delphian flickered again. Even if we accepted this philosophy, implementation would take decades. We don't have decades. The Zynthian Empire is mobilizing for a major offensive. That's why I brought a demonstration, Chen said. She signaled and the chamber's displays shifted to show a live feed from the contested border zone. 3 human ships, 2 Vroxian crystal ships, and a Kalmorian heavy cruiser hung in formation. It was a formation unlike anything the Federation had seen before. Interspersed, integrated, mixed. What you're watching is Task Force Unity, Chen explained. We've been training together for 6 months. Mixed crews, shared command structures, integrated weapon systems. The Zynthians don't know about it yet. They're about to.
As if on cue, a Zynthian battle group emerged from hyperspace. 10 ships, a standard raiding force. The feed showed their formation, already shifting into the pattern they always used against Federation forces. They were preparing for a battle they thought they understood. They were wrong. Task Force Unity moved as a single organism. The human ships didn't peel off to form their own wing. The Vroxian crystals didn't sweep left. Instead, they flowed together, covering each other's weaknesses, amplifying each other's strengths. A human destroyer used its superior engines to position itself as a shield for a Vroxian ship charging its main weapon. The Calmorian cruiser, instead of charging forward alone, held position and provided covering fire while the faster ships maneuvered. The Zynthians tried to adopt, but how do you adapt to something you've never seen? They targeted the largest ship, the standard tactic, only to find it was being protected by smaller, more agile vessels they couldn't get past. They attempted to flank, only to discover the formation had no flanks, no weak points left exposed by cultural combat preferences. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Not a single Federation ship was lost. 7 Zynthian vessels were destroyed. The remaining 3 fled. The council chamber was dead silent. 11 minutes, Chen said quietly. When the Zynthians attacked Epsilon 7, that battle lasted 4 hours and cost us dozens of ships. The difference wasn't technology. It wasn't numbers. It was doctrine. It was fighting smart instead of fighting proud. The Calmorian delegate leaned forward. Your species has been in space for 20 years. How dare you presume to teach us warfare?
I don't presume anything, Chen replied. I'm sharing what we learned so you don't have to pay the same price we did. Take it or leave it. But the Zynthians are watching that footage right now, and they're realizing something. They're realizing they have no idea how to fight a truly unified force. For the first time in this war, they're afraid. The Vroxian ambassador's crystals had turned a clear, bright blue. This would require restructuring our entire military. Millennia of tradition would have to be reconsidered. Species would have to surrender control of their own battle groups. Yes, Chen said, that's exactly what it would require. The question is whether you value tradition more than survival. A new voice spoke up, one that hadn't been heard yet. The Archon, the Federation's supreme military commander, an ancient being who had held the position for 3 centuries. Admiral Chen, your demonstration is impressive, but you're asking us to fundamentally change who we are. No, Chen corrected. I'm asking you to become who you claim to be. You're not the Vroxian Federation or the Calmorian Federation. You're the Galactic Federation, so act like it. The Archon was silent for a long moment. Then, Task Force Unity, you said they've been training for 6 months. How long until we could implement this across the fleet? Chen felt her heart race. With full cooperation, 2 years for basic integration, 5 years for complete implementation, but we can start expanding immediately. Every month we wait, the Zynthians get smarter about our old tactics. There will be resistance, the Archon said. Not just from this council, but from ship captains, from admirals, from entire species who see their combat traditions as sacred. I know, Chen acknowledged, but I've studied your history. Every species in this chamber nearly destroyed itself before joining the Federation. The Vroxians had their crystal wars. The Calmorians had the hive conflicts. The Delphians nearly collapsed into entropy. You all learned that survival requires setting aside old hatreds and old habits. This is just the next step. The Archon turned to address the full council. I am invoking Emergency Protocol 7. Admiral Chen's proposal will be implemented immediately across all Federation military forces. Any species that refuses to participate will have their military privileges suspended until they comply. The chamber erupted again, but this time the Archon's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. We are at war. The Zynthian Empire seeks to destroy everything we have built. We can fight them separately and die with our traditions intact, or we can fight them together and survive. Those are the only choices. This session is concluded. 3 years later, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the FSS Unity, the Federation's new flagship. A joint construction project, it incorporated design elements from 23 different species. Its captain was Vroxian, its tactical officer was Calmorian, its chief engineer was human. Its crew of 1,500 represented 42 species, and not one of them thought of themselves as anything but Federation first. On the view screen, the Zynthian home fleet was in full retreat. What should have been the war's decisive battle had turned into a rout. The Zynthians had prepared for another conventional engagement. They'd encountered something they couldn't predict, couldn't counter, couldn't understand. A truly unified force. The Roxian captain turned to Chen. The Zynthian Emperor is requesting terms of surrender. They're asking how we achieved such perfect coordination. Chen smiled. Tell them it was simple. We stopped being many armies and became one. We stopped fighting like we were dozens of species who happened to share a military and started fighting like we were one people who happened to have many forms. Will you share the full doctrine with them? The Kelmorian tactical officer asked. Eventually, Chen said, but first they joined the Federation, not as conquered subjects, but as numbers. If they want to learn how to fight together, they first have to learn how to live together. The captain's crystals pulsed with amusement. 3 years ago, you stood before the council and told us to change everything we knew about war. We thought you were arrogant. We thought you were naive. And now, Chen asked, now we're alive. Now we're winning. Now we're actually the unified federation we always claimed to be. He paused. Your species spent centuries fighting itself before reaching the stars. We all did. But you learned something from that struggle that we missed. You learned that strength doesn't come from maintaining separation. It comes from embracing integration. Chen looked out at the stars, at the retreating enemy fleet, at the future they'd just secured. One rule, she said quietly. One simple rule changed everything. Fight together or die separately. It seems obvious now. All the best truths do, the captain replied, once someone finally says them out loud. The FSS Unity turned toward home, flanked by ships of a dozen different designs, crewed by beings of 100 different forms, fighting as one force, one fleet, one people. Humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't advanced technology or superior weapons. It was a lesson learned in blood on a small blue planet, now saving countless lives across the stars. Sometimes changing everything starts with changing one simple thing. And sometimes that one simple thing is remembering that the labels we give ourselves matter less than what we choose to do together. The war would continue for 2 more years, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. The Zynthians weren't fighting separate species anymore. They were fighting the Federation, truly unified for the first time in its history. And against that, they never stood a chance.